So good evening. We're here tonight with Eddy Funkhouser. Eddy is our presenter on the topic of PFLAG engagement, from advocacy to membership. Eddy currently serves as a chapter engagement coordinator on behalf of PFLAG National. He joined the national PFLAG team in May of 2022, and as a chapter engagement coordinator, they support chapters' success by providing resources and developing programming for our chapter and many chapters in our region. Before joining PFLAG National, they worked at the Trans Peer Mentor Program as a program manager, where they engaged trans adult volunteers in mentoring trans youth. Eddy has also worked as the Volunteer Services Program Coordinator at St. Anthony Foundation, which strives to meet the needs of those experiencing homelessness or living in poverty, and as the coordinator of volunteer engagement at the San Francisco Botanical Garden. So wide variety of career experiences. He's also a former educator, having taught not only at elementary schools, but also having founded and facilitated rainbow clubs for LGBTQ plus students and allies. So with that, welcome, Eddy. Please take it away.
Great. Hi, folks. It's great to be here. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. No, that didn't work. Sorry. Hold, please. Okay, let's try that one more time. Okay, let me go to full screen. Okay, great. Like Frank said, I'm going to be talking about PFLAG engagement from advocacy to membership, and really those two aspects of how to engage with your PFLAG chapter. Frank did an awesome job of sharing my background, but as he said, I'm Eddy Funkhouser. I use they, he pronouns. Emphasis on the they, that's really my preference. I'm the Western Chapter Engagement Coordinator at PFLAG National. So I work with the 14 westernmost states and their PFLAG chapters, but I'm actually located in California. I'm in Berkeley. So relatively local to y'all, considering I could be in Alaska or Wyoming and still be in the region of chapters I support. Yeah, so I am going to jump into, before I get into that, I'm going to go into advocacy and then membership. But before I even get into advocacy, I want to acknowledge that, I forgot I had an agenda in here. The agenda is to provide information resources to inform and protect yourself during this administration, discuss advocacy tactics, including in-person meetings with elected officials, making phone calls, and writing letters and emails, cover how to take action and engage with PFLAG via advocacy and membership, and we'll have time for a Q&A. But what I was going to say is that before we even get into the advocacy portion, I want to acknowledge that these are wild times we're living in right now. There's executive orders, there's all sorts of things happening. And so I want to spend a minute talking about those things and what advocacy looks like in that context. So for executive orders, we know they've been far-ranging, but they're not unexpected. They've been ranging from redefining the identities and experiences of our trans, non-binary, and intersex loved ones, redefining birthright citizenship. I'm not going to recount it all. You probably know. But it's important to remember that few executive orders can change policy immediately, nor can they immediately change regulations, nor the law as established through statutes in the courts. Litigation is sure to follow. In some cases, already being prepared. As Frank mentioned, PFLAG National filed today. I actually have some more info about that. But the validity of your family is not dictated by an executive order. So jumping into, I wasn't expecting Frank to share this information, but thank you for sharing it, Frank. Yeah, we this earlier today around noon, we filed in the District of Maryland a lawsuit where we are represented by the ACLU nationally, Lambda Legal, the ACLU of Maryland, and a few law firms. And we are the lead plaintiff. We also have Families with Transgender Youth, Transgender Young Adults, and GLAMA, which is an organization of medical professionals who provide gender-affirming care. And we're fighting President Trump's executive order to shut down access to necessary medical care for transgender youth and young adults. We're looking for we're going to immediately follow the lawsuit with a request for an immediate restraining order against the enforcement of this executive order. So as Frank mentioned, that will apply to if the restraining order is granted, it'll be seized for everyone, not just PFLAG members or other plaintiffs. And we'll see where we go with that. As we are navigating the executive orders that pertain to the LGBTQ plus community, especially the transgender community, as well as other executive orders, it's really important to make sure you're protecting yourself and your family. I'm going to share some resources all in one document that's got a bunch of links at the end, including some that have some resources for things like documents and responding to ICE, things like that, in case you need those resources or support. Because before I even get into talking about advocacy, we're not doing advocacy in a vacuum. We're doing it in a Trump administration. So even in California. Okay, so jumping into advocacy, you as an individual are where change starts. So some of you may already be doing some sort of advocacy, some maybe just starting out, or you may not even be sure if you want to get involved in advocacy, but this is relevant to everyone. You as an individual can make a difference. And with the power of community, we can effectively generate social change and hold government officials accountable. People-powered movements are so effective, help you become part of something bigger than yourself. So tactics for advocacy. I'm gonna go over a few different ways to engage with legislators, to encourage them to vote for or against a piece of legislation that you think they should vote for or against, or just simply to support the LGBTQ plus community. So one way to engage with lawmakers is to schedule in-person meetings with them. It is usually the most effective advocacy tactic. You can reach out to your representative's office to schedule the meeting. The contact info will be available online. Speak with the scheduler, introduce yourself as a constituent listing where you live. Tell them what you want to talk about. Is it a specific piece of legislation? Is it just the LGBTQ plus community and rights? Is it transgender rights? And then request that meeting. It's possible that you won't be able to meet directly with the legislator, but you can ask to meet with their legislative assistant. Whether you're meeting as an individual or on behalf of PFLAG Manhattan Beach, South Bay, which with the chapter's blessing, you're welcome to do. You should arrive prepared with an agenda. So decide what you're going to talk about, what your goals for the meeting will be. So that could be a specific piece of legislation and you'd like them to vote for or against it. It could be just voicing their support for the LGBTQ plus community. If it's a piece of legislation, make sure you're really educated about it. Know what your role is, and then be aware of time. So meetings usually range from 10 to 20 minutes, and you should prepare accordingly. You can take notes during your meeting so you can share with others, PFLAGgers or others in the community, and use it for next steps for advocacy for you and for others. After meeting with your elected official, you'll want to follow up. So this first meeting can just be your starting point for more engagement with the legislator. So you can send the thank you note to the person you met with. If you talked about specific things that you needed to provide follow-up information on, provide that follow-up information. You can thank your representative or even your governor for taking your position. And if there's another opportunity to meet with this person, schedule that meeting. You've already laid the groundwork at this point. So another opportunity to engage in person with, or sometimes on Zoom, with elected officials is public meetings. They offer y'all as community members a chance to hear updates from state legislators leading up to and during the legislative session. So we're in legislative session right now in California. They'll occur in the home districts, so you don't have to go all the way to Sacramento. They're local and are open to the public. If you sign up for your elected officials newsletter, you will get information about these and be able to show up and voice your opinions. Alternatively to signing up for the newsletter, you can see if there's a local organization that tracks meetings like this. Often a United Way chapter or a League of Women Voters chapter might be doing that. When you attend a public meeting, it's very similar to attending an in-person meeting with a elected official. You're going to want to do all the same things. Set an agenda, educate yourself, plan your questions or comments ahead of time, be concise, take those notes, and send a thank you note just like you would in a public meeting. Another way to engage with elected officials is with letters and emails. These are less time intensive, more accessible if it's hard for you to make something in person. And even your PFLAG chapter could get together and write letters or emails together as an event if y'all want, or informally as part of just as individuals or a formal event, whatever y'all want to do. And they are super important because the volume of mail or email that a legislator gets tells them how much their constituents care about the issue, and therefore determines how important it is to them. So again, similar to an in-person meeting, make sure you're educated about the issue you're talking about. You'll want to be polite and thank you for their time. Be honest. Facts are good, but personal stories are better. And this is universally true for engaging with elected officials. If you tell your personal story about your LGBTQ plus identity, your family, if your loved one with an LGBTQ plus identity, and why elected officials support or a specific piece of legislation is key to your or your family's well-being and rights, that is going to be more powerful than any list of facts from the Trevor Project or whatever it may be. You can be specific and ask them to vote a certain way, whether that's on a piece of legislation or that's just generally for LGBTQ plus or transgender rights. And using a form email is not what you should do. So if 10, 20 of you are all writing emails to the same elected official, you should not all use the same email. It should be an individual personal email. It will be much, much more effective than a form email, and a handwritten letter is even more effective than an email. Another option for engaging with legislators is phone calls. You can call. You're usually not going to reach the elected official. You'll reach a staffer. And you should focus on the LGBTQ plus issues, upcoming legislative votes if applicable, and time-sensitive dialogue. You should only be calling, and this is true for all of this engagement with elected officials, it should only be done for your elected official, not for the elected official for an area that you do not live in. It is only if you are the constituent of this elected official that you should be reaching out. And you should always be respectful, even if you're getting negative rhetoric in response. Okay, and then in engaging in all ways with elected officials, whether that's the local, state, or federal level, and I'll get a little bit more into local advocacy in a minute. You should be making sure you build relationships, make connections, tell your story. Again, that power of that personal story rather than facts. Do your homework, be educated, always be polite and formal, and be mindful of timing. So if you are at a public meeting, you're going to have a specific amount of time that you're able to speak. And if you're in a meeting with an elected official, you may have 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever that looks like. Don'ts, you should stay focused, not discuss too many issues. Again, don't send form letters. You should send personal stories or personalized letters. You should not argue or yell, back to that being respectful. Should not lie or mislead them. And your goal, in interacting with an elected official is always to foster more relationship, to create goodwill for PFLAG, for the LGBTQ plus community. You should not be shutting down the possibility of a future relationship because they may not listen to you the next time something is on the ballot. Sorry, not on the ballot, in the legislature, a bill. So some ways to take action on the state and local level. So on the state level, if you're not familiar with Equality California, they are an excellent organization. They do lobbying for LGBTQ plus rights in California. They in the document I'm going to share at the end that has a bunch of resource links, there's links to Equality California things. They have an advocacy day coming up. They have one every year. It's in Sacramento, which I know is a haul for y'all, but if anyone can make it, it's March 26th. A lot of PFLAGers are going from all different chapters around the state. There's going to be probably a gathering of different PFLAGers during lunch or after the event. So if you do register, let me know if you register so I can make sure to connect you to the other PFLAGers going. Deadline to register for that is February 28th. They also have an email newsletter that is a really great source of knowing what legislation is happening in California and when a good time to reach out to your legislators in all of the ways I just detailed would be, and how you can be educated on the legislation so that you're have the appropriate talking points. They also have press releases and continued information. I know that I have had a lot of questions in the last few weeks, especially about how federal things impact me as a Californian. They have a lot of really great information about what California's protections are in response to every executive order, how these things will affect Californians. And there's lots and lots of information. So all of these things will be in that resource document I share at the end. On the local level, you can also engage with your school board, library board, or city council. So what does that look like? So before you go to a school board meeting, you should know when and where your school board will meet, the policy around public comments. So you should go expecting to make a public comment, and you should know where public comments fall on the agenda, how long you have to speak. This is another thing that you will have a limited amount of time, and you may have to register ahead of time to make a public comment. You also should know if there's a dress code. Some school board or library board meetings have a dress code. So all of that will be on the website. To find your local school board or library board meeting, you should Google whatever your district or municipality is, Board of Education meeting schedule or library meeting schedule. Usually this will take you to your Board of Education or library website, which will have meeting schedules, meeting locations, prior meeting minutes, and the agenda for the upcoming meeting. If on the agenda is something like a book ban, a curriculum ban, a bathroom ban, a whatever, or alternatively, a pro LGBTQ plus policy that is protecting LGBTQ plus students. That's a great time to plan to go to a school board meeting or library board meeting. I just, yeah, and make a public comment. But even if those things are not on the agenda, you can go and advocate for LGBTQ plus students or LGBTQ plus books. You'll see in minutes from prior meetings how those, if those things have come up recently, and what policies have been passed. Important things to consider are the more people you have going to one of these meetings, the better. You could potentially wear rainbows, wear a PFLAG shirt, PFLAG sticker, PFLAG button, even hand out PFLAG stickers or buttons to make it clear that you are together as PFLAG, make your numbers visible. You should prepare your remarks ahead of time, knowing what you're going to say. Again, that personal story is really compelling. And when you're preparing to testify, preparation is a key component for success. So find your school board or library board members and their office information. Research recent LGBTQ plus issues that have come up before the school board or library board and how members voted. You can look into your members' history, personal histories, to see if you can make a personal connection and tailor your message to their experience. You can generally find this information within past meeting agendas, which are usually posted publicly on the website, as I mentioned. Our partner Red Wine and Blue, that's WINE, not white, but Red Wine and Blue has something called a troublemaker training that is also a really great resource for getting involved specifically with school boards that you can watch their training. Once you're at the meeting, what should you do? So in your remarks, you should introduce yourself, mention that you're a constituent, any ties you have to your community is that I have students, I have kids who are students in this school district. I am an alum of the school district. My kids are alums of the school district. My grandkids are in the school district, whatever that may be. And introduce yourself as a PFLAGger. Introduce the issue, raise the topic you're there to discuss. You can talk about the issue. You should have 1 to 2 talking points specifically about the issue or policy that you're addressing. And then again, make it personal. Why does this matter to you? Why does this affect you as an individual, your child, your grandchild, yourself, your community? Make sure you relate what you're asking for to a personal experience and a local need. If you're going in person, you can even bring photos with you to put a real face on what can sometimes be abstract issues for elected officials. Use emotion to your benefit. And then make the ask. Ask for the school board to support or oppose the proposal you've discussed and explain why we need policies to keep our families safe. You can offer to be a resource. You can bring materials with you, flyers or brochures or whatever PFLAG Manhattan Beach South Bay has. PFLAG National creates publications. I don't know if your chapter has them, but any sort of resources that you can share and be clear that you want to continue a relationship and dialogue. And then you want to end on a positive note. You can return to a feel-good talking point that leaves a positive impression and shows appreciation to the school board or library board and their staff for listening to your comments. And then after the meeting, you should thank them. Send a note to your elected officials, thanking them for listening to your comments. Restate any commitments and reiterate your requests. If you promised any additional information, be sure to include that along with your note. Offer again to be a resource and stay connected with them. And you can include information about PFLAG meetings or events that they or their staffers might want to attend. And then lastly, be ready for the next meeting. Keep track of future school board or library board meetings and make sure your local network knows about them. Consistently showing up is key. And that doesn't have to be you as an individual. That can be you go to one, and then the next month, somebody else in this room goes to one. And the more people who go to one, the better, but sustainability is really important. So if all of you go to one and then nobody goes to any ever again, that's probably less effective than if you figure out how to sustainably show up. And I will name, I actually don't know much about what's going on in your local school boards and library boards. It may be that everyone's doing great things and they don't need encouragement, but even so, showing up to thank them for what they're doing can be really great. And that's true for state level legislators as well. I know I have met with my representatives on the state and local level to thank them for their commitment to LGBTQ plus rights. We're lucky in California that we largely have that. But it doesn't have to be, there's a book ban on the agenda. I have to show up to that. It can just be showing up and thanking the elected officials for the work they're doing. Okay, so I just talked a lot about advocacy. And as Frank mentioned, I'm also going to talk about membership, which is an entirely different way to engage with PFLAG and the LGBTQ plus community and allies. So PFLAG is a member organization. We have thousands, tens of thousands of members across the country. Becoming a member of PFLAG Manhattan Beach South Bay means you are also a member of PFLAG National, because chapter membership and national membership are linked. And the benefits of being a PFLAG National member, which you are if you're a chapter member, is you get a subscription to PFLAG National emails, including Policy Matters. So Policy Matters is a weekly email that goes out on Fridays that is specifically about advocacy, tying back into what I was talking about, updates on what's happening federally and at the state level, opportunities to engage with your legislators, and some ideas of what's happening internationally for LGBTQ plus rights as well. You also get regular take action advocacy alerts in your state. So for instance, if you're familiar with the Safety Act that recently passed in California that banned forced outing policies in schools, and a forced outing policy is if a kid comes out to a teacher or counselor or school employee, they are required to tell their parents. Some school districts were doing that. This Safety Act banned that. And when that was going through the legislature, PFLAG National sent out action alerts, these take action alerts to PFLAGers in the state of California, getting them to make sure their elected officials were voting for the Safety Act. So that's an opportunity to make sure you know what's going on and when it's good to activate. As a member, you also get exclusive invitations and discounted discounted tickets to events sometimes. You get access to members only PFLAG Academy online learning sessions and resources. I'll get into what that is in a second. You get an annual subscription to the PFLAG Banner newsletter, which is our biannual publication that goes through all the work PFLAG does. And you get a special members only rate for the PFLAG National Convention, which is a conference specifically for PFLAGers that happens every other year. It's coming up this year in October. And it'll be in Chicago this year. It's a different place in the country every year or every other year that it occurs. And it's specifically focused on LGBTQ plus community, advocacy, support, education. The work that PFLAG does is the entirety of this conference. So if that's something that you're looking for or to be in community with, you get a discounted rate for that. To be a member, it's only required to pay $15 to PFLAG Manhattan Beach South Bay. Every membership for a household, $15 of that membership goes to PFLAG National. So if you donate if you pay $15 for a membership for to PFLAG Manhattan Beach South Bay, you're getting that membership. If you donate anything extra, that is a way to support the chapter. Regardless, you are supporting, by becoming a member, you're supporting both PFLAG National, and if you donate extra, PFLAG Manhattan Beach South Bay, so that we can continue to operate, do all the great things that we do. Y'all, I'm sure, are pretty intimately familiar with all the great things PFLAG Manhattan Beach South Bay does, including running this meeting tonight. PFLAG National, trust me, does great things. The lawsuit that we filed today, for one. So supporting us and the chapter, collectively us, is a really, really great way to get it to be engaged with PFLAG. So one of those member benefits that I mentioned is PFLAG Academy Online. Those are webinars and toolkits that come out monthly, and then they are recorded so that you can view them later. There are lots of different topics. Here are some examples. Ways to support the LGBTQ plus community, ways to learn more about the LGBTQ plus community, ways to increase acceptance and inclusion of the LGBTQ plus community, and how to build the world that we want for the LGBTQ plus community. And those, there are some that are available to the public, but many of them are members only. So you can access those as a member of PFLAG National. To wrap up, I want to share the resources I mentioned. So I have a quite unwieldy document with lots and lots of links. I'm going to drop this link in the chat too. To access lots of the things I talked about, but lots of things in addition. So there's a whole bunch of stuff about advocacy, a bunch of stuff about membership, but then there's also additional resources about community, about safety, about things that are particularly relevant in this administration and in this challenging time, which I know isn't exactly the topic of what I was talking about now tonight, but I wanted to make sure that y'all had those resources as well. If you all have any questions or want further resources, here's my contact information. That document also has the contact information of our advocacy department. We have a whole department at PFLAG National that works on advocacy, and you can reach them as well, or you can just reach me and I can put you in touch with them if needed. But I am happy to be in touch with anyone who has any questions that don't get covered tonight as well. Yeah, that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.